The quarantine era of the show was difficult.
COVID was coming. We could sense it. Everyone was talking about it, but we of course only thought it would last a couple of weeks.
We had a big week the week before we went out. Niall Horan was here. He was doing 4 performances, a sketch. He had one performance where he's literally walking through the audience.
I remember that week so well. We were all kind of like hearing about it. James and I were sat in his office, and on the news it was like, okay, we're shutting down the country.
America at a standstill. Tens of millions of people stay home because of the coronavirus. Schools, businesses, and public places are forced to shut down.
We went from something that was a news topic that we spoke about to something that was a national emergency and changing the way we lived.
It's been a scary time. These past few weeks, we're gonna start doing a show without an audience. So it went from like no audience to like no crew to not being allowed in the building in like 3 hours.
I remember we had a text chain with the other showrunners of late night.
All of the late night shows actually talking to each other and trying to figure out how can we do shows. We're all going through the same thing together, and even if nothing feels particularly funny right now, we can at least talk, and that's helpful and important.
And I remember a real turning point in the thinking of it was don't think about what you can't do. Because what you can't do is irrelevant. It's just going to frustrate you. What can we do? How can we make the best possible show?
It pivoted pretty quickly to figuring out how to create a show in James's garage.
But we didn't want to ask anyone to put themselves in danger that we weren't willing to do. So that ended up being me and Tim Mancinelli, the director, and Robin Gallo, the producer, like emptying James's garage out and carrying stuff down into his basement, and Lou Traby coming in and building a little set.
Robbie? Yes? Oh, hi, Robbie.
The technical challenges of COVID were immense. You know, we were taking what's a long, tried and true facility of cameras and switchers and things like that, and putting basically a Zoom into James's garage.
The speed in which we had to adapt and the talents of the people we've surrounded ourselves with to figure things out. And the fact that we could just rise to an occasion that very uninvited, very unwelcome occasion, but figure out a way to make a television show during that period.
The first idea that we had was to do a show called Home Fest, which essentially was to try and get the biggest artists in the world to perform from their homes. And I had this thing I said to Ben, I was like, let's try and bring everybody together to keep everybody apart. Welcome to Home Fest. Thank you for joining me on what is, without question, one of the strangest specials I'm ever likely to make.
The idea was that we could feature artists that were going through the same thing everybody else was going through. They're on lockdown, they're stuck in their homes, and get to the absolute global nature of it.
Because tonight we really just wanted to make a show to try and bring some joy and some music into your home.
That home show was a raw show. It was so unknown.
And I'm here on my own with just these 3 cameras. I can show you my view here. This is what I can see. We pushed everything out. It's all behind that curtain, and now it's just you and it's me for the next hour. Plus, some of the biggest artists in the world are going to join us.
And we had Andrea Bocelli in Italy that was suffering so bad at the time. We had BTS boys in South Korea. We had Dua Lipa in London. And it was essentially like we're all isolated right now. We're all going through something. But actually watching Home Fest showed our viewer that they weren't alone. And I think that was what was really lovely about that show.
Because we absolutely will get through this. We will, and that's why we wanted to make this show, to try and share in these feelings together, share music that we love with people that we love.
And then James at his desk in that garage, there was something quite charming about it, something quite honest about it. That's where we held our show for the next 2 or 3 months.
We're here, we're doing it. I mean, Ian, is there a worse setup for comedy than what we're doing right now?
No, this is as bad as it gets.
COVID shows were probably some of the hardest shows we ever did. We still wanted to entertain, we still wanted to do games, but none of these things have ever been tried.
The great thing about late night, we have to react to whatever's happening, whether that's good or bad. And how do we make the best of it? I felt the worst for James having to do a monologue to no one. I can't imagine that was a lot of fun.
You know, safety comes first, comedy comes second, so keep that in mind as we head into today's headlines. I mean, those weeks doing the show in my garage were, it was horrible. It was just so bleak, because also the news that you were getting every day was so bleak. We're all going through something and you're just trying to keep everybody employed. Sorry, now I've got that out of the way.
I hated every waking second of the garage shows.
Yeah, I'm just going nowhere, just like always, but now I'm in my garage going nowhere.
Can you honestly believe that this is on TV?
Probably the low point of my time on James's show is that period where we were all at home with too much time on our hands, and James hired a bunch of people to either be frozen or posen. It was a great illustration of people using a pandemic to, no, it was actually a horrible illustration of people using a pandemic to entertain.
Are you frozen or are you posing?
Frozen.
Oh, there we go. Josh, you're good at this.
So there was a lot of stuff we did during the quarantine era of the show that was like good for quarantine. And now looking back on it, you're like, oh.
4 months we've been doing this. And I gotta tell you, it hasn't got any easier. Welcome back. Now, you might be wondering, you know, what's going on? Why is the door opening? What's going on?
I don't think they were great shows, but there was something beautiful in the fact that we were doing them.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, James.
Hi, Jay.
I think we did the best with what we could, but it was tough. I just remember thinking we got to get back in the studio as soon as we can. It's showtime. Let's do this. All good. It's all good.
I think nobody could have been more excited than James probably that he got to do the show back in the studio, even though it was going to be different than how we did it before.
After 4 months away, it's so nice to see so many people in the studio. Again, our camera crew, Mark, Joel, Jimmy, Pete. Look at Pete. Look at Pete. I never thought I'd be this happy to see Pete.
In lieu of an audience, we needed there to be some atmosphere in the room, and so we all decided just to be in the room together, and we'd be the audience for James.
Do you want to do the headlines?
No.
Lauren, do you want to do the headlines?
No.
No!
Go ahead.
I honestly thought you were going to save me then. All right, well, you, we're doing them because I was like, we have to be the group of friends that people can't meet up with at the pub. People are at home, they can't meet up with their friends. We will be those friends.
What's your ultimate sandwich?
Yeah.
We haven't got time.
What?
The last thing that this show should become is a group of friends chatting about sandwiches. Something happened, and it just became kind of magic in here. Nice shirt tonight, Pete. Thanks. What are we looking at here? Sharks?
Fins up, baby.
Fins up, baby.
Yeah.
I think it unlocked a part of James that I had known for 8 years, that a lot of America had not gotten to know.
The show that it was for the first 20 minutes in those shows back in the studio in COVID were the thing that I always thought the show would be. Who's had the worst first date in this room? What do you think? Oh, Cece, go on.
A guy took me to see Schindler's List on our first date, and he had already seen it.
Building these characters of the crew, Pete and Mark and Joel and Susan and like finding these things that just became like, it's like, oh my God, we're doing it. We've done 866 shows for you at home. This isn't for you, this is for us.
It kind of reminds me of like sitting in a green room after a show with other stand-up comedians.
I'll wrestle you now.
I know you'd wrestle me now, but I'm not wrestling you now. I'm not wrestling.
Why? Yeah,
And for me, it was like a dream because for half an hour to 45 minutes every night, like I could go out there and just like joke around with like a bunch of my good friends.
I'm genuinely losing my mind. Look at what we're doing.
And then they put that on television, which is insane.
I would be shocked if anything that happened in the last 45 minutes gets on television tonight.
And with the stupid we did, like covering ourselves in glow sticks and turning all the lights off and dancing and chucking a shrimp into Ian's mouth. Ian, you want a shrimp? Yes. No! Oh my God! I would laugh so much.
What's happening on the show right now is so great because you are teetering on the knife's edge of sanity.
It felt weirdly dangerous because you really didn't know where the conversation was leading, and like all of a sudden, James was calling Oprah.
This is madness.
Hello.
Oprah?
Hello.
Is that Oprah?
It's Oprah, it's James Corden.
Oh man, it was such fun. And the relationships that were created in that moment, that I would treasure it every day.
Viewers were also excited to know what was going on with this group. It was kind of incredible.
What's been going on here, guys? Who is Nick what? And you explain. Wait, is he here? Oh my God! What has been going on?
I know this sounds ridiculous. I genuinely think some of those shows were our best shows. In terms of like, are we doing something that no one else can do? Yes.
100% we should do a week of shows from a cruise ship, only if I can share a room with Pete. And nobody checks our bags when we get on.
Post-COVID, we've held on to the looseness that we discovered during that COVID, less audience, no audience, garage show period.
So there's this like really upsetting moment that always happens. Is like you're saying something, we're interacting, and you know, he comes over and he brings the mic, but then he decides when you're done. So like maybe you'll.
I think the way that we do the monologue now really plays to my strengths far better than it did when I would stand on a mark and tell these jokes and stuff.
We've added a new noise. We've added a new noise to the thing. Listen to this.
Actually, those times defined a lot of what our show is today. The interaction James has with his team, crew, the banter, the relaxed part one.
Who thinks there are more doors in the world? Okay, and who thinks there's more wheels? Okay, there's no way there's more wheels.
You're sitting on 5 wheels.
All right, forget it.
We've held on to certain things and ways of doing things that we would have never, ever known about, never been forced to learn about, had we not had the experience of 2020, 2021.
That all came from COVID and was a really good addition to the show, but it was something that we had to learn by going through that pandemic.
From the absolute bottom of my heart, this has been the strangest and oddest and hardest year at points, but coming in here and sitting down and talking to everybody here has been, without question, the best part of most of my days, and I will always cherish this feeling that we've created in here. I mean it, I will miss it hugely.